There's a warning sign in human behavior that Carl Jung called one of the most dangerous, and most people have no idea they're showing it. This hidden trait can block your manifestations, damage your relationships, and keep you stuck in repeating cycles.
Do you feel like you keep attracting the same negative situations? Like something deep inside is quietly sabotaging your growth? Understanding this signal could be the breakthrough your spiritual journey needs. In the next few minutes, you'll discover how this insight from Jung can help you break free from limiting patterns and align your energy for real transformation. Maybe you've been doing the inner work, trying to heal, manifest, and grow, but something still feels off, like an invisible force keeps pulling you backward. Stay with me, my friend. Let's change that together. Have you ever found yourself suddenly irritated? Maybe someone said something harmless, or plans changed just slightly, and yet a wave of emotion rises within you? Not just mild annoyance, but something deeper, disproportionate, strange, as if a nerve you didn't know you had was struck. We tend to brush these moments aside, telling ourselves it's nothing, that we're just tired or stressed. But is it really nothing? Or is it, as Carl Jung might say, a whisper from the unconscious? Jung believed that within each of us lives a hidden counterpart, the shadow. It contains all the aspects of ourselves we deny, reject, or fear to face. When irritation rises without cause, it may be the shadow knocking on the door. Not to hurt us, but to be acknowledged. From a spiritual lens, our emotions are not random. They are sacred signals, messages from the soul. Inner irritation can be a sacred alarm, alerting us to something beneath the surface that wants attention. A forgotten memory, a suppressed belief, an unloved part of ourselves. Think of an ordinary moment. A friend's innocent comment triggers a sudden wave of defensiveness. Pause there. Rather than reacting, we can choose to turn inward and ask, why did that hurt? That question is a doorway. As Rumi said, the wound is the place where the light enters you. Inner irritation, when met with curiosity instead of judgment, becomes a teacher. It guides us towards self-discovery. We are not being punished by our emotions. We are being invited. Invited to listen more deeply, to soften, to turn inward. Because sometimes, the most dangerous thing is not the feeling itself, but ignoring where it points. Every human being carries a shadow. Not because we are broken, but because we are whole. From the earliest days of philosophy to the teachings of mystics and sages, we find a recurring truth. Light and dark are not enemies. They are partners in the dance of existence. Carl Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The shadow is not evil. It is simply the parts of ourselves we've hidden, anger we weren't allowed to feel, desires we were told were wrong, talents we suppressed to stay safe or fit in. Over time, these unlived parts collect in the unconscious, shaping what Jung called the personal shadow. We reject these aspects not out of malice, but survival. As children, we adapt to the expectations of our families, our cultures, our environments. We learn what earns love, what draws punishment. And in that process, certain traits are pushed away. But they don't disappear, they wait. Spiritually, embracing the shadow is an act of returning to wholeness. Not perfection, wholeness. When we deny the shadow, we deny ourselves. We fragment. We live half-lives, cut off from the full depth of what it means to be human. It's a universal experience. You are not alone. Everyone has a shadow. The question is not whether you have one, but how you relate to it. To embrace the shadow is to walk toward yourself, not away. It is to say, I will no longer reject what is mine. I will meet it. I will listen. And in doing so, you begin the journey not just of healing, but of becoming truly alive. It's easy to think our judgments are about other people, that the arrogance, the selfishness, the cruelty we see in them has nothing to do with us. But Carl Jung warned us, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. What if our harshest judgments are not revelations about others, but reflections of our own hidden selves? In Jungian psychology, this is the principle of projection. We see in others what we cannot see, or bear to see, in ourselves. That irritation with someone's pride might stem from our own unclaimed desire to be seen. That contempt for someone's vulnerability might hide our own fear of being exposed. Projection is how the shadow sneaks into the world unnoticed. We place our disowned traits onto others, unconsciously distancing ourselves from them. But in doing so, we also miss an opportunity for inner growth. Spiritually, even our so-called enemies can be teachers. Each judgment we feel can be a sacred mirror. The world reflects back what lies within. For example, imagine judging someone for being manipulative. Pause. Ask gently, have I ever used charm or persuasion to control a situation? Do I fear that part of myself? This isn't about blame. It's about honesty. About reclaiming the scattered pieces of our psyche. When we bring light to our projections, something beautiful happens. Judgment softens into understanding. Anger gives way to curiosity. And we begin to feel a quiet compassion, not just for others, but for ourselves. So the next time judgment rises, try this. Rather than pushing it away, turn it inward and whisper, "What are you trying to show me?" The shadow speaks through the mirror of others. The brave ones learn to listen. We like to think we're in control, rational, conscious beings making thoughtful choices. But Jung reminds us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The shadow doesn't vanish just because we ignore it. In fact, when left in the dark, it grows stronger. It begins to leak into our lives, quietly, subtly, and often destructively. Have you ever found yourself repeating the same painful relationship patterns? Sabotaging something good just when things are going well? Avoiding situations without really understanding why? These are often signs of the shadow at work. Psychologically, it's like having an invisible puppeteer, an inner ghost, pulling the strings behind the scenes. You react, lash out, withdraw, overcompensate, and later wonder, why did I do that? The answer often lies not in the moment, but in the unhealed, unseen layers of the past. Spiritually, this is sometimes called shadow possession, a moment when unconscious forces hijack the self. When you become a stranger to yourself. It's not evil, it's unacknowledged pain acting out, trying to find expression in the only way it knows. And here lies the danger. What we don't face within, we project outward. What we suppress returns as fate, accident, crisis. When we deny our inner darkness, we become prisoners of it. But there is hope and power in awareness. The moment we notice a pattern, a feeling, a reaction, and pause, is the moment the spell begins to break. We step out of autopilot. We reclaim choice. We move from being controlled to becoming conscious. This is not an easy path, but it is a sacred one. As Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Yet through that pain, we begin to find clarity, authenticity, and liberation. There's a quiet power in turning toward what we fear most, especially when that fear lives within us. Carl Jung called this journey individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating every part of the self, even the parts we'd rather not see. It's not enough to shine our light into the world. We must also be willing to carry that light into our own darkness. Not to destroy it, but to understand it. This is where true freedom begins, not in perfection, but in honest self-encounter. Spiritually, shadow work is a sacred act. It asks for courage, but not the loud, heroic kind. It calls for quiet bravery, the willingness to sit with discomfort, to listen to the hidden voices inside, and to offer compassion rather than condemnation. You might find that what you've labeled as weakness is really unacknowledged pain. That behind the mask of anger is a child longing to be held. That your envy is a signal of an unlived desire. These realizations don't make you flawed, they make you human. This journey mirrors the hero's path in mythology. The hero descends into the underworld, not to escape, but to retrieve something vital. In many stories, what they bring back is not treasure, but wisdom. A deeper knowledge of self. When we face the shadow, we reclaim energy we once spent suppressing it. That energy can become creativity, clarity, compassion. We stop being reactive and start responding with consciousness. We stop fearing our darkness and begin honoring it as part of our wholeness. As one spiritual teacher said, to be free is not to be unafraid, but to be unhidden. So ask yourself, what have I buried within me, not because it was evil, but because I didn't know how to hold it? The act of facing it, gently, steadily, with love, can become the doorway to a deeper, freer self. We often think of the shadow as a container for our worst traits, anger, envy, shame. But Jung taught that the shadow also holds immense potential. Not just what we fear, but what we've neglected. Not just our wounds, but our forgotten gifts. Imagine this, a child who was told to stop singing loudly, to sit still, to be normal. Over time, their creativity, once vivid, retreated into the shadow. Or someone praised only for being polite and selfless, who learned to suppress their assertiveness. These aspects don't vanish, they hide, waiting to be reclaimed. This is the paradox. What we hide out of fear or shame often contains our deepest truths. Within the shadow, we might rediscover boldness, originality, passion. That envy we feel, it may point to a buried longing we haven't dared to pursue. That anger, it may be the voice of our boundaries finally trying to speak. Philosophically, this is a call to see the darkness not as evil, but as unexpressed light. Spiritually, it's about reintegration, awakening the wholeness that was always there, just forgotten. Rumi wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Sometimes, the gift is buried right beneath the scar. So reflect gently. What quality or dream have I exiled because I was told it wasn't acceptable? What if that is where my soul is calling me back to life? Shame is perhaps the heaviest emotion we carry. It doesn't shout like anger or ache like sadness, it hides. It whispers that something about us is fundamentally wrong. And because of that whisper, we bury pieces of ourselves so deeply that even we forget they exist. Carl Jung noted that shame is a soul-eating emotion. It fragments us. It teaches us to mask, to pretend, to exile the parts of ourselves that need the most love. And when we keep secrets, even from ourselves, they grow in silence, feeding the shadow with isolation. But shame is not proof of unworthiness. It's a veil, not a truth. It forms when our inner world collides with rejection from the outer world, when a child's tears are mocked, or a teenager's vulnerability is met with ridicule. We learn to hide what once came naturally. Spiritually, healing begins when we meet shame with presence, not punishment. When we say to those inner parts, "You are safe now. You don't have to hide anymore." In doing so, we stitch ourselves back together. Everyone has something they've tucked away, a memory, a desire, a truth too tender to show. But what if that hidden place isn't a prison, but a doorway? What if your deepest healing begins the moment you stop running from what hurts and start listening to it? We live in a world that often equates strength with a kind of stoic denial, an image of the person who never flinches, never falters, never feels too much. But real strength is far more subtle. It's the quiet steadiness of someone who knows their own depths and no longer runs from them. Carl Jung understood this. He knew that wholeness comes not from light alone, but from the union of opposites, the integration of both shadow and self. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about reclaiming who was lost along the way. Shadow work doesn't ask us to fix ourselves. It asks us to hold ourselves, to stop fighting the parts we were once told to hide, to stand with our own pain and remain. There is power in that, soft, grounded, undeniable. In many spiritual traditions, this integration is the return. Not a leap toward enlightenment, but a homecoming to one's true being. It is the birth of inner alignment, where the inner conflict softens and something wiser takes its place. This kind of wholeness cannot be faked. It has weight. It has presence. And it frees a person from the exhausting effort of pretending to be only one thing. Strength is not in denial, but in acceptance. Not in conquest, but in communion. And it is through that communion, with all that we are, that something quietly magnificent begins to awaken. If this message resonated with you, consider subscribing. Here we explore the deeper layers of the human experience, spiritual growth, shadow work, and the art of becoming whole. There's more to come, and your presence here means more than you know. Until next time, stay true to the journey inward.